Which element are you? In Qigong, we use a system of 5 elements to sort of make sense of the world. They cycle from water to wood, to fire, to earth, to metal, and back to water. And these elements have a lot of different characteristics that have sort of accumulated over thousands of years of working with them. While they all are a part of each of us, 1 or 2 element is usually more pronounced in each of our personalities and our physical constitution. So by looking at the different characteristics of the element, we can understand maybe a little bit more about ourselves. One of the main characteristics we talk about are the emotions associated with these elements. So starting again from water, we have fear, anger, joy, worry, and grief. And for maybe a Westerner and American, those sound like a lot of negative emotions that we heard joy in there. But Qigong isn't as concerned about whether emotions are positive or negative. It's all about balance. Maybe, yeah, we want to be happy, but if you were happy all the time about everything that happened, it wouldn't be the best approach. And if you didn't feel fear when something was dangerous, you'd be in a lot of trouble too. So let's look at these different elements and emotions to try to figure out what makes us up. So as we move through these elements, we're not going to think about which emotions we feel the most often, but more about which emotions we find the most motivating. And so we're starting with water, with fear. And it might sound really weird to be motivated by fear, but it doesn't mean running and cowering. What we're actually talking about is our instincts, that sort of reptilian brain, if you will, that is constantly scanning our environment for threats and keeping us alive and happy. So if you are a water person, you may find that when you're making big decisions in your life, you're not necessarily drawing out a big pros and cons list. You just kind of have a sense that fear is actually driving you towards what you want. It's making it clearer. And I think it's suitable that it's winter during the water element time, because to be able to listen to your instincts, you kind of have to have this inner quiet, like a snowy morning. That's when your instinctive fear works best and knows which things that you should stay away from and which things you should move towards. For the element of wood, we're looking at being motivated by anger. And that again might sound a little scary, but I don't want you to think about a bully. I want you to think about Martin Luther King. Anger, as my master Wasenta Young says, is an intelligence. It tells you when something is wrong. We get angry about a lot of things in our lives, but if you're a wood element, you might find yourself more preoccupied with injustice, with inequality, with things that draw us apart from each other, and you want to bring people together. And you might be a person who takes more action than others about those sorts of things. You're probably persistent and dogged and hopefully unstoppable. And the fire element brings us to the emotion of joy, which in Qigong is really something that comes out of things being harmonized and in balance. So if you're a Westerner or an American, you've probably received some toxic positivity throughout your life, this unchallenged assumption that happiness is the unquestionable goal of being alive, but that doesn't have to be the case, and you can still be happy and not be a fire element person. So because of this difficulty, I think it's easier to set aside like the big decisions in your life when you're thinking about the fire element, and instead think about little decisions. Like when you're buying a pair of shoes or a phone case or a wallet or a bag, are you picking nice, sophisticated neutrals? Or did you maybe never get that memo and you kept picking shiny things and patterned things and bright colors and things that just make you happy to see? the earth element brings us to the emotion of worry. And a lot of people try to back away from the idea of the worry emotion, but I think it's a wonderful one. My father used to say the definition of a parent is one who worries. And I think you worry about something when you care about it. It is the earth element, after all, it's nurturing. And don't get this confused with anxiety, because Qigong really considers anxiety more a disorder of the fire element. Worry is a nurturing emotion. And you might be an earth element person if you found throughout your life you end up in situations where you're providing mentoring, providing care, maybe even providing parenting, but that's a real through line for you. And last, we have metal with the emotion of grief. Now, obviously in our lives, we are all going to experience grief, and you don't have to be experiencing grief more often than others to be a metal element. But what the emotion of grief is telling us in this element is that you might be metal if you are someone who has a better sense of what to hold on to and what to let go of. You're someone who can move across the country with a suitcase. You know what's important, and you're not afraid to get rid of things that no longer are working for you. If you want a human example, I would say Ariana Grande, thank you, next, is the perfect embodiment of this metal element. So if you're someone who never even had to read Marie Kondo, you might be a metal element. One last consideration I want to share is the idea of yin and yang in these elements. Wood and fire are yang elements, water and metal are yin elements, and earth is a balanced element. So if you think about your personal energy, and if it's a little bit maybe bright and active and pneumatic, then you might consider looking at those yang elements of wood and fire as part of your constitution. If your constitution is a little more reserved and quiet, or just relaxed and calming, if people find you a very peaceful presence, you might be more on the water metal spectrum. If you are just very balanced, you go either way, you might be a combination of those two elements, or you might have some earth in your constitution as well. Just something to keep in mind. I hope this helps you navigate the world a little bit better, understand yourself a little bit better, and practice your Qigong a little bit better.